Yarr. So I think we're live. Hey, June, how are you? Malem to you.
Malem?
Malem. Have a good Malem.
It is a good Malem.
Oh, yeah. So just to get the Malem out of the way here. So how you doing? You got something coming up this week.
Oh, yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've been sort of hinting and yelling about that all week and part of last week. So VCF Midwest is coming up this next weekend.
Right.
And this week, for me at least, I've been saying like 1 week from my perspective. I've got to pack up the truck to drive all the way up to Chicago. And that's going to happen tomorrow, in fact. And then the day after, I am on my way. So that is the next trick. Well,
you've been troubleshooting stuff madly this week, right?
Indeed. And I think I finally got this stupid thing working. So, by the way, I meant to ask, how's my audio? I'm not too hot, am I?
You're good.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, people at home, tell us how the audio is.
Yeah, I'm not like blowing the max, am I?
No.
Because I'm watching my little LED. I'm hitting red occasionally. So if I'm too loud, please tell me I'm too loud.
Are you familiar with the pseudo peak? When you do FCC, you do what's the name of the peak? It's a Bessel function. But anyways, it was designed to mimic the response of the meter that they used on radios.
That's not like a Besselheim plate, is it?
A what?
Okay.
A Bessel sign
inside Besselheim.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
Okay, never mind. You need to look around you sometime.
Okay.
It's kind of a side thing. So you mentioned Watership Down a couple of days ago, but this is it's actually a British TV show that's made up to be like an educational series of videotapes for like elementary school kids.
Right.
Except it's all made up bunkum science kind of stuff. So like they use AC/DC because they're working with iron and it's heavy metal.
Okay. Right.
So it's just all kinds of silliness and stuff like that. It's great.
So a lot like the Teletubbies.
Yes. Except, well, no, not anything like the Teletubbies, actually.
Not anything like the Teletubbies.
Nothing like that, no. Anyway.
I don't trust the Teletubbies. I always felt they had an agenda. It's
all about the baby in the sun. It is the star child.
Okay, well that goes back
the true
to
star child.
Watership Down, where they call Frith the god, the sun. They call it Frith, which is also God.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then they're like Frith in a pond. That's how they curse.
Yep. The retro encabulator is another wacko thing.
So, earlier this week, you were having a punch drive problem.
I was, in fact. Problem.
And we fixed it on Discord?
We did.
Yes.
It was on Discord. We were trying to figure out all kinds of crazy stuff. We finally did manage to get it sorted.
Yeah.
And so the punch right here is all set up, aside from the extra junk that I put on top because I was troubleshooting some other things. But yeah, we have a fully functioning punch now. If I turn it on, it doesn't seem to do much because you can't really see the bulb is actually on inside.
Right.
Actually, it's not on inside. Apparently, I forgot to turn on the power. Or not. Crap, maybe I'm in trouble. No, it helps to plug it in.
Remember that on day of setup.
Well, yes, indeed. And hopefully I will have plenty of cable and power for that. I'm actually a little worried. Okay, there we go. That's what it's supposed to do. So yeah, you actually can see that it's on because the bulb is on. If I zoom in, you'll be able to see a little better.
Okay.
Hopefully you can see that. You're zoomed in as far as I can get. Yeah, there's a little bit of glow coming out of the top there. And yeah, so up until that live stream that we did over Discord, this thing was tearing paper tape left and right. And we finally got that all sorted on camera. And it turns out it was a pair of diodes that was the issue.
Right.
So when I was actually in the process of recording some footage that will hopefully make it to YouTube before I make it out to VCF Midwest, while I was troubleshooting things, I had the main PCB that is actually on the side here.
Right.
So the entire logic on this thing is out on the side, and it's one giant PCB. And I had it laying over, and I powered it up once on the bench, and I shorted a few things, and I think that killed those 2 diodes. And then in the process of replacing those diodes, I also had to get into the machine, into the actual punch part.
That was the hardest part, it looked like.
And that was like the craziest, hardest part. But the trick was that I ended up replacing all the linkages. So, oh, that's right, it's flathead. It's all flathead. Crud.
Yep, and during the troubleshooting, we talked about the history of the flathead.
We did.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what the conclusion was on that, actually.
Well, the conclusion is people should join our Discord at coriolis-effect.com. And our Discord is there, and join us and talk tech, electronics, vintage.
Yup. That is kind of the point. Where did that screw come from? Because now I've got a Phillips head on this side.
Oh, now you have a Patreon, right? We should talk about that.
We should. Let me open this up so we can talk about the punch, though, because that was the thing you were asking about. There we go. I don't have quite the right screws. And so they don't quite fit all of these English thread holes because it's Heathkit and, you know, early American stuff. So yeah, the punch linkages back here are a little bit weird because this machine uses solenoids, explicit solenoids here.
Okay.
To drive each one of the punch dies down there. And so it's a whole bunch of like these crazy linkages in here that literally pull back to punch things like that. And what I ended up having to do in the process of pulling out this board is I actually had to pull out 3 of these plungers, and I ended up swapping some of the linkages, and then suddenly it wasn't tearing paper anymore.
Yeah. And what was tearing the paper? Was something dragging, not clearing the hole quick enough, or?
Yeah, so this thing is super temperamental. So as it turns out, the linkages have a set length, and they do interfere with each other. So like this plunger pulls next to this plunger, and unless you have them set up proper, you can actually have one keep the other one out a little bit too long.
Oh, wow, okay.
And they interfere up at the top and then also down, like it's really hard to show on camera, but the punch block down there, you have the cylinders, right, where these horns sort of align into on the side, and then immediately next to that is another cylinder. So each horn sort of fits in between the two, sort of like this.
Right.
You can't really see. Sort of like this. And so when one gets punched down, that horn moves, and then the one to the right of it can then also interfere. And so you end up with physical interference on the top and then also on the bottom. And it was luck of the draw. When I put this in the other direction, suddenly it started working.
Wow. That I'm sure there's mechanical models for that crosstalk you were just talking about, right? Because it's mechanical crosstalk at that one point.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a mess and a half. So for those who don't,
P-Dub.
Hey, P-Dubs.
And somebody's asking.
Yeah, so I heard about that too. I think the basement is where they're going to have all the talks at Midwest this year, because
Okay.
we ran out of venue space. And so we're actually, like,
That's a good
if you
problem.
look at the map on VCFMidwest.org, we have a whole map of the place now, and we're using up literally every square inch we could find to fit everybody into this venue this time.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. And we had Jason on to talk about Jason Timmons to talk about the show, and that's why he was talking about. Just I kept seeing expansive areas that they've added on to it for the show. So cool. So you're showing your tape punch.
Oh yeah. Well, everything you see behind me is going to the fair.
Well, and I was kind of going to go down. So of course you need something to drive the tape punch, right?
That's right.
And that includes homemade cables and things, I believe.
Yeah, so this punch is, I mean, it's Heathkit. Like, Heathkit is kind of how you doing on the best days, because the way they wire things up is they use these Molex connectors. And unfortunately, these Molex connectors that they use are not actually made anymore. These are actually the wrong ones. I bought these from Anchor Electronics hoping that they would fit. It turns out I was off by a whole column. And
right.
Yeah, and it's a little too short. So
how much money did you spend at Anchor that day?
I think it was like $500.
Yeah.
I bought way too much stuff, but I wanted to keep them in business. So that was the thought there. But the end result is that I couldn't actually make, okay, I'll have to get to it another way. I couldn't actually make a real cable for this thing.
Right.
So instead, I decided I was going to use ribbon cable and ferrules. So down there's my makeshift cable for this thing. And zooming in and adjusting the focus, you can see that this is not your normal like cable arrangement that you would typically do. These are literally, it's called a ferrule.
So it's not your normal rat's nest. It's a completely different rat's nest.
For sure.
Yes.
But these are actually used to crimp down stranded cable into a nice little cylindrical conductor that you can then insert into things like terminal blocks and stuff like that. But what I've done is I've purposefully crimped the wrong side. I crimped the back instead of the front, and that actually makes the cable that's inside crimp to the inside part where there's a little bit of metal, and then leaves this hollow tube up on the end, which I can then slide up over on one of these pins.
Right.
And then I've got a nice connection that works.
So will it survive the trip?
That is the question. So I'm actually going to pull this out before I leave. So this cable is actually going to be removed. It won't be connected while in transit.
Okay.
It's
so you have to repin it. You have to get all those pins in the right order when you get there.
Yes. Yes, that's true. On the upside, it's literally just pin 1 up in the upper right. And so it's 1 through 4, then 5 through 8, and then 9 through 12, and so on and so forth. So it's literally just top right to bottom left, going left to right, or right to left, the whole way.
I'd be tempted to ship the cable like on this end still attached.
It's tempting, but I don't think I want to put that cable through that kind of stress. I think it'll be all right.
I gotcha.
Pulling it apart.
And I'm more thinking like I don't think I'd want to put my eyes and finger through the dexterity test of trying to do it at a show.
Well, it's not too hard to put together, so I'm not too worried about that.
Right. But shows. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. The shows are tough. But all right, what's this?
So the thing that actually drives this punch is a Heathkit H11A. This is the equivalent of a PDP-11.
Right, right.
What I have it set up right now is I've got the CPU, memory, a couple of serial cards, and a floppy controller. And this is the other end of that cable. This is the parallel card that was graciously donated, shipped to me anyway, by a guy by the name of Lee. Thank you very much, Lee. This whole thing wouldn't work without your support. This is awesome. Thank you. But yeah, I had to make a custom cable for this thing too. The way it's set up, the parallel card is, it actually needs to be looped back, or sorry, all these pins need to be shorted to ground. Otherwise the reader won't work. So it's kind of goofy that way. But I was trying to get the printer working out of this thing, and I couldn't actually quite make it work. So I'm going to pull that out, and then we can turn this on, and you can see what it actually does. And yes, it actually is supposed to be this janky. So parallel I/O cable goes in here.
I wonder what the origins of the word jank are.
I'm sure it's a military term. So this backplane is actually serpentine, so I have to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So the 5th cable goes there, or card goes below the parallel cable. Okay, so now we can actually turn it on. And because it's Heathkit again, and because it's like 1970s tech, you turn on AC first. And then you get the whoosh sound.
Right.
And if I can get the fuse working, there we go. Turn on the terminal. Okay, so now we've got AC running. And this is the other half of the machine, so you have to be able to have some kind of storage for your programs. And in this particular case, this guy uses 8-inch floppies.
Right.
And it is the most clunky thing you've probably ever heard. So let's turn on DC.
And each one of those floppies comes with its own area code, I'm told. I mean,
Pretty much.
It's the 4-digit add-on code, but still.
Okay, so let's see if you can see the terminal. Kind of hard to see, but I'm going to do it anyway. And there we go. Fix the zoom a little bit, and then the focus right about there. Okay. So
I see a cursor.
You should see $1, but we're not getting $1. So let me restart the PDP. Sometimes it gets confused. Hopefully it's not host. Let's see, I disconnected the wrong one. That's the problem. Minor technical difficulties. I pulled the wrong serial cable.
So now, did you have this side of things, this terminal already?
I did, actually.
Okay. So
I
was
know
the
it works.
terminal in search of happiness through tape drives and all the accoutrements?
Pretty much. Okay, so now we got $1, and we can tell it to boot. Got to insert the floppies. And then I can hit enter, and it will start doing its chuggy thing. There we go. If you listen.
Yep.
Yeah. So now we head back over here, and we've got a date prompt. Okay, and we don't want to change that because, yeah, if I put it in 2023, bad things happen.
Yeah, I was going to say, right.
Okay, so then we load BASIC, because I'm not going to write in PDP-11 assembly yet. It's, I mean, I do have a programming card, so that does help, but it's not something I'm going to learn in a couple of days, so.
Right.
Instead, I do old.
Before I forget, bring your Tilt 5 thing with you to the show if it's something we can play with.
Okay, so this is the program, and then if I run it, it gives us a prompt for what is your name. And so we know this part is working now, so now we switch over to the paper punch. Okay, and then there we go. So we need to have this guy on. So he's on. We need to have punch enabled.
It's beautiful that when the light comes on, you know, because we worked so hard to get that sucker.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to give it a strip of paper. And this is always kind of janky trying to load it in the back. So there's a little slot in the bottom on the back. And I have to come up with a way to hold the paper tape real, because I can't do this every time.
Right. Well, you just demonstrated why you have to drive to these shows is because they won't let you take that knife on the airplane.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Okay, can you see the mechanics? I guess you can't. Here, let me zoom in so you can see how this thing actually works.
All right, need a little focus.
There we go.
Cool. Good.
Yeah. So I can't show both the tape and the punch, but that'll have to do. So I have to load this punch or this paper tape first.
Right.
And you can see how the solenoid just sort of plunks its way through.
Right, right.
So now we've got a straight punch across the top here.
Right.
Right. But now, if I type in my name, and you can see how it functions. And that's pretty much it. There's your punch. And then for those that actually want to see, let me change the thing a little bit. I gotta find the correct way to write this. Yeah, here we go. And it looks like I'm not focused. There we go.
Wow.
Subscribe. Visited VCF Southwest, because this is what I actually had in the program before. But yeah, it does work. So I just need to make some tweaks to the program, and yeah, we'll be good to go.
Cool, cool. Yeah, I just remember you weren't stressed, but you were like, well, there is a VCF coming, so.
It took a lot of work to get that punch working.
What's a Famicom?
A Famicom is the Japanese Nintendo.
Ah.
I will have that with me as well. That will be running Family Basic with the keyboard, so you can actually write programs on the Famicom and then actually make like Mario move across the screen and interact with the D-pad and everything.
Yeah, I discussed with somebody one time how wouldn't it be nice if you could teach, and maybe ChatGPT will allow us to do this, to teach the concepts of flow processes and programming without the nuances of syntax, right? And
or you could just pick up Python.
And we spent the time talking about, oh, then there's a drawer and you would take something out of the drawer, you know, how to make kids be able to understand. And I think the Lego stuff did a pretty good job of that, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Lego and Meccano both were actually brilliant at that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So for sure.
Yeah, we didn't have that when I was young. All I had was an erector set and a whole bunch of blood blisters on my finger from sticking them in the gears. It was so, and you might have thought it's like, well, Bill, stop doing that. But I'm a young, soon-to-be engineer. It's like
you gotta break some fingers sometime.
Well, case in point.
Well, okay, that's a different thing. So aside from the Famicom and the Heathkit, I will also have my PS2 Model 77. It's kind of like buried at the moment. I'm not going to try and bring it out because
It's heavy.
Got a lot of stuff to get over. Also, you see that large format printer? That is
Yes.
not coming with me because I couldn't get the blasted thing to work. That's why this was a freaking mess, because the serial card wasn't behaving correct, and I couldn't get this thing to print for some reason. So I'm out of time. Not going to bother. We're just going to do this stuff on this table. We'll have that set up. We'll have the PS2 Model 77 with the projector, and I'm going to run the basic demo again. So at VCF Southwest, if you couldn't make it, I actually ran a basic programming demo where I was actually showing what you can do in the various basics on PCs that most people don't even think about. It's totally worth taking a look at. If you didn't see it at VCF Southwest and you're making it to Midwest, definitely check it out. I'm going to try and do it at least once every day.
And the way to find out when she's doing it is you'll see this huge crowd of people all around somebody, and like when I went up to the crowd, I heard somebody talking about farts and graphics. And
I'm hoping maybe I can get LGR to come by while I'm doing the beginning of the demo at least, because I think he'd get a kick out of it.
Well, sure, we can arrange to have him bodily drugged by your booth there. That's actually not a problem.
So PS2, and then of course the 128 will be there because Comtari.
Oh, what'd you say?
Comtari.
Ah, okay. I was going to ask about that.
It's a mishmash of all of the vintage computers that I have, actually. So Commodore, Atari, there's the Amiga A, then there's the TRS 80 series, and then 6400 for like the 2600, Apple II.
I would expect something like that to burst into flames just based on principles. I mean, just the universe shrugs, right?
That's kind of what we're doing over at the museum. We're putting IBM machines right next to DEC machines. It's like those two. That's like fighting words.
So, Retro Chrome's joined us. Hey, man, how you doing?
Hi.
Let's see. You can't
make an omelet without breaking eggs. Yeah.
You can't make an omelet without. No, that's not true. You can blow the egg out of the shell. You kind of drill yourself a small hole in one side, and then the other side, and you can blow it out. Because that's how they get the full shells to hang from the trees. So you end up like this big bowl of yellow snot, I guess. So what's SX64 here says? Is there still a show on Friday? There was this Friday. Oh, is today Saturday? Or Friday?
Today is Saturday.
Oh, wow.
Friday was yesterday. And Sunday is tomorrow, and also my horrible day where I get to lift these things. That freaking... that thing is 75 pounds. It's ridiculous. So you see the punch, right? Like the punch is made out of like it. Okay, so this side is MDF, this side is MDF, and they got like 1/8" steel here, and a little bit of steel in the back, and it's not too bad. Like it's like 10 pounds, and then you get over here to this guy, and the entire machine is like ringed in 1/8" steel.
Right.
Here, on the top, on the bottom, on the other side, on the back. It's like just all 1/8" steel plates. And then inside, these drives are actually Memorex 850 8" drives. These are the first model that Shugart invented after he left IBM.
Right, okay.
Well, being a first generation style 8" drive, these are cast steel. So the entire thing is basically just one gigantic steel mess. And then of course, you have the power supply and stuff in the back, which is just this giant transformer. So you literally lift 75 pounds of material just to move this around. Everything else is easy. This thing is the nightmare.
Well, and according to OSHA, I think anything over 70 pounds requires 2 people.
Yes, technically I should be lifting that with help.
That's right. That's right.
But I cheat. See, I have a couple of hydraulic lifts that I got from like Harbor Freight or something like that.
That's right. I remember those. Yeah. Well, you dug out your. I'm going to get the byte swap again at the MX21.
No. 21MX.
MX. See, I knew it. But you went and dug that sucker out and put it on your on your lift, and we all had a blast with it at Jerry's.
Yep. Well, that's it right there. It's kind of hard to see because it's facing away from us. But that is a machine I hope to get into also on the channel, because these things are, so the bigger stuff I do want to get into on the channel. But first I need to like pay my dues and do the program for the 128. So that's why I'm like sort of holding off on things. But this machine is foundational because it was one of the first mini computers to use DRAM instead of core memory.
Okay.
And
2114s?
I believe so, yeah.
3 voltage, something like that?
Yeah, I think they are actually. So because it's the first machine to use DRAM, they gave you a gigantic NiCad battery to keep the RAM alive in case power died.
And we know how good NiCad batteries of the day were.
Oh, yes. I've got a couple of Amiga 2000s that are quite sad. Well, okay, I gave one away today. So I'm down to 1.
Oh. So did you give the one to the museum you were at today?
No, I actually gave it to a guy by the name of Some Computer Guy. His name's Eric. He's actually a local here in Texas, along with Usagi. And the story behind these Amiga 2000s is that they were being used by Gould Systems, which was the manufacturer of a bunch of real-time mini computers that were like hardwired to do real-time systems. They were used primarily for like simulators, real-time industrial controls, like crazy stuff. Right. And I mean, if you saw these backplanes, oh my God, it's insane. But it was done on the cheap. And so to follow along in the on the cheap bit, they went and bought Amiga 2000s.
Right.
And then rebadged them.
Oh, wow.
So the one I gave to Eric actually is badged with the Encore company name, which is what Gould became later. And the but the thing is that they were actually modifying these things to be able to be the main console.
Right.
So I gave that one to him, and I kept the Amiga 2000 one because otherwise it's pretty much the same.
Right. No, that was after my time, but that's a cool use of an Amiga. I just didn't know that any Amigas got rebranded. Take a diluted brand and dilute it further. Well,
I went with Eric down to Houston to go check out these machines, these Gould machines, and I didn't expect to find anything. I was just there sort of like as grunt lifting capacity helping person.
Right.
But yeah, I just looked up at one of these shelves and I'm like, are those Amiga 2000s? And the guy who owned the place was like, yeah, they are. And I'm like, why do you have Amiga 2000s? Well, they're being rebranded and we used to use them for consoles. And so we both pulled them down and we started looking at them. It's like, this is crazy. Unfortunately, both Vardas exploded. So I do have battery damage on both boards, but
That's like a Ferrari engine, just to like use it as a golf cart.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. But all I can figure is they saw the real-time operating system, not the kernel, the exec, in Amiga, and we're thinking, oh, it's real-time, so that means we can use it in our real-time system.
I'm told there was a race condition every time. Now, tell me if this sounds anything remotely like software, right? There was a race condition every time they would go to lock, not a layer, but a gizmo or a gadget, something like that. It's part
Okay.
of the
Yeah, a gadget.
gadget. Okay. There was a race condition in the machines where every time you did that, it might lock up.
Oh,
You could
interesting.
hit it wrong and it'd lock up.
I
And
wasn't aware of that one.
well, one
That
of
sounds
the
like software
answers
issue.
was, don't tell anybody.
Of course. Like the Vic flickering, huh?
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know whatever happened with that, but that I when I heard that, I just went, yeah. How would you get rid of all race conditions? You know, I mean, there's got
Pretty
to
much,
be
yeah.
one. You fix all of the ones except for the real race problem, which is who came first.
Pretty much. And gadgets were weird. That was like the weirdest whole system in that how they did the UI and stuff. It was awesome though, because like if you had one app that crashed,
Right.
the rest of the system was fine. Of course, you couldn't do anything because it's an Amiga. It immediately tells you to reboot, kind of thing. But
And it tries to
still,
be
pretty
funny
awesome.
about it. Yeah. Guru meditation. We were just, when we saw that, we were not amused.
I'm sure.
Now, do you know the story behind the clock on the, or one of the stories behind the clock on the Amiga desktop?
No, I don't.
It's Eric Cotton did that. It's set to the time of the it was at the Columbia or the first shuttle disaster.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's like 1041 or something like that. It's the time the shuttle exploded. So
Wow.
yeah, built
That's a
into
hell of an
your
epoch.
Amiga. What?
That is a hell of an epoch.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not like Unix's or IBM's 1980, what was it, January 1st, 1980 for some reason?
Oh, that thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Old
yeah,
epoch.
that's they used a real epoch, in other words. That's awesome.
I feel like I've lived an epoch. I got body parts falling off. Dropping bits, ECC errors, you know, just all the...
It's all about the framing errors, right?
Right. So, yeah, it's all about how good you can shove everything back in a frame at the end of the day, right? And society will reward you for not leaving your stuff all over the place, back in your frame.
Well, see, this is why you have to actually go in and disable Nagel's algorithm sometimes. You don't usually want to pack all the packets fully. Sometimes you really do just want to put one thing in a packet and let it go.
Just a tiny little... I try and explain mixing VoIP packets with data packets. I'm like, okay, you're in California with those metered on-ramps, and there's semi-trucks, and there's little Volkswagens dancing around in the lanes, and, you know, and just trying to get them to understand you could kill someone. You know, it could cause a big collision. So
that's for sure.
Cool. All right. Well, you have a safe trip.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's a long haul for you, but
it's already been 38 minutes. Holy crap.
Yeah. I told you you'd forget. Didn't I tell you you'd forget about the time?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's but yeah, you need to wind down now, and it's later on the East Coast, and I'm going to go wind down too. So thanks so much for joining us tonight, and for everybody, come to VCF Midwest next week, something like that.
Oh yeah, we forgot to do the.
What did we forget to do?
I should have done a banner for VCFMidwest.org.
Do it quick.
I don't know.
You're the quickest typist.
I've never done this before.
I know.
Let's see. Create a banner. There we go. And show.
Boom.
Oh. Go to VCFMidwest.org. They've got all the maps and everything. They tell you when the show is, what all the talks are going to be. It'll be awesome. Definitely take a look.
Yes. They do an excellent show. So, all right, everybody have a good Saturday night. Take care.
See you guys.